Welcome into another edition of Gold and Black Radio. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. There were some fireworks over the weekend, but not necessarily the good kind for the Boilers, as longtime target Trey Thompson surprisingly reclassified for 2025 and ended up choosing another Big Ten school in Iowa. But on the good side of the ledger, Barry Odom's staff kept cooking with yet another Louisville recruit turn in Jamarcus Weiss. That's the third Cardinal to go from Cardinal Red to Boiler Gold and Black over the course of the last couple of months. We'll save those topics for a more in-depth look from Brian Newbird and Dub Jellison and Tom Dienhart and all the usual cast of characters here in the coming weeks right here on Gold and Black Radio. But today, summer is time to kind of catch your breath a little bit and take a little bit of a bird's eye view and talk about not only what's going on with men's basketball and football, but also what's going on right here at the site at goldenblack.com. We have a special upcoming anniversary, which will be commemorated soon. We also have some exciting growth news. And we're going to talk about all of those things with Alan Karpick, who is the publisher and grand poobah of Gold and Black here in just a few moments. But as always, let's get to our great Gold and Black sponsors that make the show possible, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, a proud partner of Purdue Athletics and the official credit card for Purdue fans. Boiler Up, East End Grill and Ripple and Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street, the perfect place for your next event. The Whitaker Inn, this Midwestern oasis, is perfect for a relaxing staycation or a weekend getaway. Escape from the ordinary at the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort, where tee times for the 2025 golf season at Sand Valley are now available. Using their online booking platform, it's easier than ever to find availability and experience golf as it was meant to be. Conveniently located in the breathtaking dunes of central Wisconsin, Sand Valley offers a collection of award-winning courses designed by world-renowned architects that are suitable for all skill levels. Visit sandvalley.com and book your tee times online today. And finally, the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research. The Purdue Institute for Cancer Research has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Purdue brings together world-class Boilermaker scientists from across the university, conducting cutting-edge research that uncovers new ways to prevent, diagnose, and treat cancer. With your support, cancer research saves lives. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. Let's welcome on Alan Karpick, who's no stranger, of course, to these platforms, the publisher of goldenblack.com. Alan, I hope you had a great fourth, and it's been kind of rare that we get good football recruiting news with bad basketball recruiting news, but you've been doing this for decades now, so I'm guessing nothing really surprises you anymore in this world.
No, and Derek, the way that the world is now, yes, July 4th is come and gone, and there were some fireworks at places all around the state of Indiana, all around the United States, and maybe a little bit around the Purdue world with the Trey Thompson news. But I think it is the new normal of getting used to expect, as Gene Cady, the great seer of things, used to say, expect the unexpected. I think somebody said it before he did, but he said it all the time, and that's what it is. It's just the world we're living in, and we'd best get used to it. And for whether it be Trey Thompson, whether it be flips from Louisville to Purdue and back to Louisville, and it seems like these two teams are trading players and coaches. It seems funny situation, to say the least.
Yeah, and we'll have to wait for more of a sample size. And by wait, I mean, like, we're not really going to know how seismic all these changes are until probably 3, 4, 5 years down the line, right? But for all the worry about the gap between the haves and the have-nots growing, and look, Ohio State and Texas and programs like that are always going to be in a different category than Vanderbilt and some of those other programs. That said, I do think the early returns over the last 18 months or so have kind of shown, Alan, that recruiting is almost even more wide open now, where somebody can choose an Iowa or even a Purdue football because, hey, with revenue sharing, I'm going to get mine regardless of where I go. Yes, those other big schools will still have the multi-million-dollar contracts like what we saw with this Texas Tech thing from over the weekend. We'll still have stories like that. But I think for the most part, this is, I don't know if I want to say level the playing field, but at the very least, it has made it, I think, even more interesting and more wide open on the recruiting front with both basketball and football.
Yeah, I think it has the potential to do that. I don't know. I mean, are we still going to live in the same world that we've kind of lived in, we being Purdue, in that you've never fully been able to compete with the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States? And it's the question is that gap going to be wider or is it closing? If it's closing, that's a good thing. I think if you look at Purdue, and we've talked about this many times, the fact that Purdue and the teams that are at the bottom of the Big Ten need to find a way to be competitive. And we don't know what we're going to see with Barry Odom's team this year because all the new players and we just you'd be not be telling the truth if you said, oh, I know emphatically Purdue is going to be in the top 12 of the Big Ten this year. How in the heck would you know? But I think these teams need to be competitive down the road. As we always say, that Ohio State-Purdue game, Ohio State-Rutgers game, for television's sake, needs to be interesting television at some point, or by the time these contracts get renegotiated in 2029, 2030, the world could change dramatically. So it is going to be fascinating. I think it will keep your attention into how competitive Purdue can be, not only from Purdue fan standpoint, but how competitive this league is going to be over time. The problem is, Derek, maybe 1 year is no great sample size. It's going to take 2 to 3 years to see how all this shakes out, and to see who is going to, is this going to be more fun, more watchable, more competitive? Do the Purdues have the same chances in relative terms as the Ohio States? Probably not, but maybe closer. That's an interesting storyline to watch.
We all know this was a difficult situation for Barry Odom to inherit, considering what was historic in all the wrong ways 2024 season. That said, he has some arrows in his quiver that previous coaches that came in here after bad seasons did not have, with the portal and being able to really kind of hit the ground running as far as adding to the team and building things up. But what's been your overall reaction to Barry Odom and his staff's first 6+ months on the job here? It's hard to believe that it's been half a year already, but we're past July 1st now. It's been half a year.
I don't know how many years it is in dog years or dog coaches years. It's something, but I think you can't help but be cautiously optimistic. I think Barry Odom, the term I always use, trains will run on time. He's very, very focused on, and he has to be, on developing that roster, but also figuring out a way that you're going to get 60 guys, 60 new players, 60 plus, or whatever that number is, to play together and find a way to be competitive when you were the worst team in the Power Four last year, maybe the worst team in all of college football. So, I think the general news is optimistic. I think you're going to see a competitive a team that's going to play to the whistle. You've heard this on this show from Tom, from Dub, from Brian. I think you're going to see that. But is it going to be enough to get Purdue past those first 2 games? I think so. But after that, we'll wait and see. But I think the overall, it's cautiously optimistic. You hear a lot of that Tiller term in that, I guess, what was it? Joe Tiller was 54 years old when he took the job. Barry Odom, 48. But kind of there's some similarities in terms of their approach. And I think that gives Purdue fans some optimism.
Yeah, 2 guys that aren't going to have to learn on the job, right?
Correct. I think that's
the difference with last staff.
Yeah, no question. I think the fact, and as again you guys have talked about, we've talked about it, is the fact that knowing failure at some level is not a bad thing. And you go back to look at what he did at Missouri. He was 500. He beat Purdue in a game that it was not a total failure by any stretch. But you learn from those things, and it all comes down to how much a guy, Barry Odom, at 48, 49 years old, is mature enough to develop a good staff, but also learn from the good things he's done at UNLV, at Arkansas, some good things at Missouri, and certainly the things he did as a player. And you hope he brings all of that package to West Lafayette.
We're talking with Alan Karpick, the publisher of goldandblack.com, for this edition of Gold and Black Radio. Thanks so much for joining us. I mentioned some of the new news about the site On3. The parent company continues to grow with the acquisition of Rivals, which has, of course, is a longtime affiliate of this site, of course, right. And one of the first brands in the recruiting news digital game back in the early portions of the 21st century. What will that mean for Gold and Black moving forward, Alan?
Well, we spent 25 years with Rivals. If you think about that, there were 2 or 3 iterations of Rivals during that time, but went with Rivals till October 31st of 2022 before moving on to On3. I think it gives us a chance. The acquisition gives us a little more capacity to in the recruiting space, especially in the football recruiting space, where Rivals has really dominated the market. Rivals has still been a very strong brand. And I think that ends up being a very positive thing. The fact that the On3 network is taking some of these sites and merging them and making stronger situations is a good thing. certainly in our situation, it's helped give us a little bit more capacity to have a guy like Dub Jellison join us from the Boiler Upload, the Purdue Rivals site for the last 3 years. He's going to make a difference for us in terms of our ability to cover recruiting the way we want to be able to cover recruiting in portals. And let's be clear. And I think that's a net positive for us. So we're very optimistic about that. One thing good about Shannon Terry at On3, who at one time owned and bought and sold Rivals back in the days of Yahoo. He knows it when he sees it. He thinks big and he's aggressive. And I think that's an important thing in this business, because as we all know in this wonderful world of media, it's almost as crazy as the transfer portal. Yeah, who the heck knows where all this goes? We could all be replaced by AI, but I think not. I think Derek Schultz is master. You can't replicate that and what you bring to the table. I hope we can't replicate what Brian Newbert and Tom Dienhart and Dub Jellison and even myself bring in terms of analysis, in terms of talking to folks and creating that community. We think that's going to be the case, but who the heck knows for sure.
I think we'd break Chat GPT, Alan, if we tried to replicate my forehead, because this cannot possibly be unnaturally replicated.
I don't want to see what they make me up to look like, because they can now and put me in all kinds of positions. But it's an interesting world, interesting time, and we've gone through several things through this business, and you know this more than anyone, how media has changed and continues to evolve. And it ultimately comes down to fan interest and being able to serve your fans with information and community that works. And we've been lucky over the last, this is our 36th year of having Gold and Black in one form or another, to be able to do that. We haven't done it perfectly. We can always do it better. And that's part of the reason why keeps us on our toes to strive to do it better down the road. Bringing people like you on in the last year and having Dub and Mike Carmen and Jordan Jones, other things that add, I think, value to our product will help us down the road.
Yeah, and the thing about evolution, Alan, you know this, you've been around the block, is that you can't guarantee that there aren't going to be changes, and sometimes those changes aren't fun for anybody. But what you want to try to focus on is just growth, right? And this is just another area where this acquisition, it's growth. It's growth for On3, it's growth for Gold and Black, and I think that's all you can hope for in this ever-changing landscape.
No question. It puts us in front of another set of people and increased our breadth, I think, is and hopefully at the end of the day, it increases our breadth too. And in terms of our ability to do the job and tell the story of Purdue football and basketball and recruiting and portal and everything else that we try to cover.
You mentioned telling the story of Purdue sports. There's a big anniversary, which makes me feel impossibly old, and I can't imagine how it makes you feel. 25 years since the Rose Bowl team, 25 years this fall. The 2000 squad, of course, a quarter century ago. And not to spoil the surprise, but you had told me you've got something in the works when it comes to the 25th anniversary of, I think, everybody's favorite Purdue football team.
Right, and by the time this airs, you'll have the first story with Chucky Okobe. And I always struggle with that's the one benefit of this type of website, is that we can do things like that, and we can do in-depth things. And we decided to take the tack. We're going to talk to probably 12 to 15 former players and coaches on that step. We'd love to get Drew Brees. We need to send out a flare to see if we can get Drew. I don't know if that's going to happen, though we had a very strong relationship with Drew back in the day. He may have outkicked our coverage, so to speak, and that's okay if he has. But we've got some really good stories to tell by guys that really have, that were there, whether it be the one that showed up on Monday. Chucky Okobe is one of the best interviews I've had the pleasure of being a part of. He's just really interesting, his attention to detail, what that meant then and what it means now. And that's kind of why we do this sports thing. I think we try to do it you want to have that experience in 2000 and go to the Rose Bowl, but you hope it makes a good life for a lot of people. And I think that you'll find out in a lot of these interviews, a lot of these people have very interesting insights into what it meant then, what they remember about it, but what it means for them now, and how it changed their lives. So we're looking forward to doing maybe 12 to 15 in-depth interviews. We've done about a half dozen of them already. Talked to Vinny Sutherland, talked to Scott Dowding, talked to our former intern and good friend Craig Terrell out of Lebanon. We're going to get Jim Chaney, which I'm excited about. I haven't talked to Jim in a long time. Brock Spack, Tim Stratton, who never short of something to say. We're going to have some good good voices to talk about, Aiken Adele, Sean Phillips, just name all these guys are household names if you're a longtime Purdue fan. And guys, that class, that group of players, a ton of NFL players, maybe not NFL Hall of Famers with the exception of Drew Brees and maybe Matt Light someday. But this is still some pretty staunch NFL guys in that group that have a lot of experiences to share. So we'll give them the space to do it and try to tell that story over the next several Mondays as we lead into the season and maybe even past the start of the season a little bit as we tell that story, the 2000 Rose Bowl team, 2001 actual game they played in, and what a magical year that was for Purdue.
Hell, you could do 10,000 words alone on Vinny Sutherland's on and off the field exploits
exactly
in West Lafayette.
No, Aries used to be a sponsor for us. They are no longer. It had nothing to do with Vinny, but Vinny will be back. And Vinny is coaching in Florida. We've already done that interview and has taken a good turn. But Vinny's always Vinny, and that's part of the fun of this thing. You don't make him like Chucky Jacoby either. He's just a bundle of energy. And I think he's the only interview that I've ever done where he ends it by saying the word aloha. That's because he does some business in the big island of Hawaii, and interesting guy as always something to say. And I think they'll make for good podcast fodder. Most of the interviews are in that 20 to 40 minute range. So if you're getting a workout in or going for a good walk, it's some good stuff that I think you'll enjoy.
I just feel like, Alan, and you could speak to this because your knowledge goes far deeper than I do when it comes to just Purdue sports in general.
That's only because I'm older. Yeah, but go ahead.
2000, it was just such the quintessential Purdue season, wasn't it? Where you had all of the emotions kind of wrapped up into one. You had the heartbreak at Notre Dame, and then in Happy Valley, and then you had the thrilling wins over Ohio State and Michigan at home. You go up to Camp Randall, you win in overtime. It was like all of the entire spectrum of the Purdue fan experience came into those 12 games, it felt like, during that season. And, it was a 3-way tie, wasn't it, atop the Big Ten? And that's how they got in there. It was a very unique, I feel like, season, but at the same time, it was a very Purdue season, if that makes sense.
I think that's perfectly said, because if not all Purdue fans are Cub fan. I get that there's some Yankees fans out there. I get it. And Purdue men's basketball fans, there's a correlation between Purdue never seems to quite do things the easy way. Now, I suppose as a Yankees fan, when you guys were winning the World Series every year, none of those were easy either. But it does seem like Purdue took the hard road. They shot themselves in the foot a couple times in that season. But the amazing thing about that 2000 team is they came back, and it is an amazing story of redemption. And Travis Dortch getting 2 chances to kick a field goal against Michigan, and then having a message for the Purdue fans. The first instance of social media email badgering of a player. That's how the world has changed. I don't think anybody gets badgered by email anymore. Travis got that. But then you can't get special teams plays at Penn State, but you come back. You almost blow the game against Ohio State, but the rest is history with Drew Brees to Seth Morales. It's an amazing story. You think about it, there really haven't been very many teams, especially in that 10-11 team Big Ten race, where you lose 2 games and you get a chance to go to the Rose Bowl. I think it's only happened one other time, if my memory serves. So Purdue did get their chance, and they had to have good fortune down the stretch. Not only after they beat Ohio State, is the way the chips fell. It was important that Northwestern beat Michigan the following week in Purdue's bye week, because Purdue went 2 weeks later and laid an egg up at Michigan State. And then Iowa, a bad Iowa team under second-year coach Kirk Ferentz, beats Northwestern. All those things had to fall into place for Purdue to get to Pasadena, and it did, and that made it for a very, very special experience that Purdue fans won't forget. And we said at the time, it was 34 years between the first and the second. Oh, it can't be 34 years again. Well, we're at 25 now, so they better get moving if they're going to get to the Rose Bowl or to some level bowl of that nature. I know that's what Barry Odom would like to do. I think it's the college football playoff would suffice, though that will be a heck of an accomplishment if that ever happens for Barry Odom or at Purdue.
It'll be very fun to go down memory road, and can't wait to do that with your work on there.
Yeah, no doubt.
And a lot of great personalities, not just Vinny, but the rest of those names that you mentioned, and a lot of those guys went on to have very, very impressive professional careers too, and a testament to the strength of that team. I know some people look back and they think, 8-4, whatever else. you go down that roster and you look at what some of those guys did in the pros, and also, you talk about Seth Morales just in business, what he's done with his life, right? These guys not only successful on the field, but also off the field, many of them as well. It's going to be a great story to retell, and I know we're all looking forward to that. Alan, thanks so much, and keep up the great work with Gold and Black. I'm not just saying that because you technically employ me and allow me to do this show. I truly
mean a contractor. That's all right.
And
a good one, by the way. So we appreciate all you do. And you know what? The thing about this site ad, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be. It's a privilege for me to do stories like with the 2000 guys. It's fun to do, and we try to make sure we're having a good time doing this. It is sports after all. There's a lot of business that's a part of this, but it's supposed to be fun and entertaining, and we try to keep it that way. And with Brian Newbert, it's always light by definition, isn't it? So it's perfect. So thanks so much, Derek. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Alan. And before you know it, we'll be doing these Friday night shows. So season's right around the corner. Looking forward to it.
Right around the corner.
That's our friend Alan Karpick, the publisher of goldenblack.com. And that is our show, Gold and Black Radio, this Tuesday edition. A final thank you to our great sponsors, including Purdue Federal Credit Union, the official credit card for Purdue fans, East End Grill and Ripple and Company, two distinctive bistros across the street from one another on the far end of Main Street in Lafayette. The Whitaker Inn for unparalleled comfort and cuisine. Visit the Whitaker Inn. Sand Valley Resort, where tee times for the 2025 golf season are now available. Visit sandvalley.com. And book those tee times online today. And finally, the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research, which has a history of innovation and one goal for the future: defeat cancer. Join the fight and donate to the Purdue Institute for Cancer Research today. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Of course, you can leave a positive review on whatever podcast platform you are utilizing. Also, if you haven't already, you'll want to subscribe to the goldenblack.com channel on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and enable alerts, new highlights and videos uploaded regularly, new content as well. Always churning and burning right here at goldenblack.com. As I mentioned, we'll get Brian Newbert back on in the coming weeks to talk about not only Trey Thompson, but recruiting updates. Of course, media day for football right around the corner. Tom Dienhart and our crew will be out there covering that. So we'll get Tom back on. Football recruiting burning hot right now with Barry Odom and his staff and Dub Jellison. So we'll continue to cycle those guys on here every single week on Gold and Black Radio as we continue to give you what we think and hope is the best Purdue coverage that is out there on the internet here at goldenblack.com. But until next Tuesday, my name's Derek Schultz. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been Gold and Black Radio, and we will see you next time.